Kelly and I are here on Pittsburgh's beautiful North Shore at the Pop District with Pittsburgh guitar legend Byron Nash. This is awesome, dude. This is awesome here. Thank you so much for having us here. This is fantastic.
Thanks for coming through. Thank you.
He is a legend.
Oh gosh.
No, you technically are. I've heard that. I've heard that word associated with your name several times. So yeah, it's
Thanks
official.
to those people saying those nice words.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So how's everything going?
Good. Yeah. It was fun coming down here today.
It was. Interesting, but I want to talk about this space, Byron. I mean,
Sure.
We'll get into your story and all that stuff, but tell us about this. Walk us through this space. It's amazing.
Thank you. Pop District. It's an initiative of the Andy Warhol Museum. So it's located right next door to it on Isabella, 7th floor. We have a whole headquarters. We have boardrooms. We have a classroom. We have a recording studio, filming studio for content and podcasts, all things like that. So it's a whole big community that we're building over here, trying to kind of elevate, but also like reignite the North Shore. So it's like a 4-block radius that we're working on over here. We're going to be building a music venue over in the Brillo lot, breaking ground next year. So there's a lot going on. It's very exciting.
That's new. I didn't know about the music.
Yeah.
I can't imagine why you would really want to do that.
Oh, I mean, it's right up my alley, right? Yeah, the venue is going to be modeled after the 930 Club in DC. And
cool.
It also will have a component of where we can rent spaces out because you can't really rent the Warhol outside of the lobby. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times we turn down 200 to 300 events a year because we can't hold it. Yeah. Now we'll be able to kind of make up for that in that space. It's going to have a rooftop patio and deck and the whole nine. So
that's like the new hot thing. Everybody wants to be on a rooftop.
I know. Yeah,
you only get so many nice days in Pittsburgh. Everybody wants to be outside.
That does make sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Fun.
That is
now,
very
what are you guys doing on Fridays? I know you're always doing these events on Friday nights.
So I host an event called Final Fridays. And what it is, it's sort of, it started last year before I started working with them. But now what we do is we have a food truck and then we have a different DJ every month. So it's the last Friday of the month. And it's 5 to 10 p.m. It's in Silver Street, which is in between the Pop District headquarters and the Warhol. And basically we set out a bunch of silver chairs and tables. It's open to the public and people can come through and hang out, drink. There's a bar, and it's just a socializing vibe. It's just nice. Creatives, business people. And a lot of the times I was finding that people would walk by and be like, oh, that looks really cool. But they thought it was private. So I was like, why don't we just get signs telling people? And now it's really taking off. So
wow. How many have you done so far?
Well, since I did it last year, there was like 5. And then we just did our first one. Our second one, actually. Time is moving very quickly on me. We did our second one this year. So.
Okay. Now, the mural is in there too, right?
Well, there's a mural by Typo, who's an artist from Miami, who did that. And then we just had an installation piece across from the Warhol with the local artist, Mikhail Luna. So we did a ribbon cutting ceremony 2 weeks ago or so.
Cool. Tell me about that.
That was a big deal because of the scale of the artwork. It's almost like 3 stories high. I don't know how long it is, but it takes up the entire parking lot. And he did a really interesting thing with like photography and how like the exposure created these other images. And then my job was to help coordinate with the team, the ribbon cutting, the guest list, the champagne, the snow cone truck. And, we had a special invite list and just kind of have everything set up for him to kind of be recognized, as a local artist and being associated with the Warhol. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So you must be like doing this kind of stuff all the time your whole life, right?
No, but I do think being an artist and being a musician does play a role in understanding how to juggle a lot of things and scheduling. And when things go wrong, you don't think about the problem, you think about the solution. It all feels kind of natural, even though it's completely in a new space,
Very cool.
But you see things. You have that eye, right?
Yeah, I think it's intuition too. It's like, that doesn't feel right. Let's go over here and fix that, and just to continue practicing with those things. It's all the same. I bartended, right? So bartending, you see a problem. Oh, there's someone at the door. How do we fix this problem? Oh, the food's wrong. How do you fix this problem? And I think it really does translate into the other styles of business and event coordinating and planning and all of that stuff. You have to think about the things behind the screen, the Wizard of Oz stuff that the public shouldn't even know is going wrong.
Right.
You know, so it seems like I found my home.
That's very nice.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Because that's I'm still looking. I'm getting close, but I'm still, I'm getting close to it, but I'm still looking. And there's an education piece here too, right?
Yeah. So we have Warhol Academy, and there's it's like a digital marketing program. I think it's like 12 weeks long, 12 or 16 weeks long. You can get a certificate through that. We have fellows that come through, and there's a social media component. So there's always learning and education here. And our whole thing is, how do we help people, young people especially, get into the new spaces as a professional? So bring them in, really upskill them. And the thing is, it's not like just a class where you're just learning from a professional. You're working alongside some very high-end people, and then they're out in the field doing it. So I think nothing's better than experience. You know, like
absolutely.
You can teach me all day, but until I've done it, it doesn't really stick.
Yeah.
And I really like that we have that component going on with the Pot District.
Yeah, I mean, that's completely true. I mean, anytime it comes to this field and this kind of work, you know, having your hands in the pot, that's the way, the best way to learn.
And it plays right into young people too. Kids are, I mean, they're 10 times, maybe even more adept at social media and the digital space and marketing, learning those marketing techniques. I mean, I would think it's just a perfect fit.
Yep.
So you have that's just a tiny little piece of Byron Nash.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you have a ton of stuff going on, and we're just going to bounce around a little bit.
Sure.
But let's go to the music, because that's the part that I think is really cool, that impresses me about you. You know, I've gone on your website, I've looked at your social and everything, and you're pretty damn good, dude.
Thanks, man. Thank you.
So how long have you been playing?
20 plus years. Yeah.
Well, but you're 25, so.
No, I mean,
It's a prodigy.
I've been playing. Yeah, I probably got serious in the 90s. Yeah. And that's it. It's really not.
No.
I ever show you that?
No.
Oh yeah, what's the backstory again? Wait, how did that happen? Oh, it was Darieth. Yeah.
So I was with Darieth, and we went to the Failure Lab.
Okay.
So she was speaking, and at the time it was Mayor Peduto. And he was speaking, and they were talking about their failure stories, which, I mean, it was really actually a very powerful,
really cool event.
Yeah, very cool. And this one starts playing. It was like an intermission at the time. So he gets up and he's playing, and I didn't know who he was. Darieth didn't know who he was. We had never met him before. And we're sitting there, and she's going over her notes, and he's just jamming. And I think my mouth probably dropped open. And I was just like, wow, he's fantastic. Wow, he's fantastic. And I just kept telling him, like, he's fantastic. And I was like, I know for some reason he's going to be in my life at some point. I'm like, we're going to do something with him. She ended up moving to Jamaica shortly after this.
Yeah, right.
So she and I kind of like put everything on a hiatus. But then I don't even know how we reconnected somehow.
I feel like it was like through social media or something, like you putting on events. I'm not quite sure, but it did come up much later, and you reminded me of that story.
Yeah, and I just said, you know, this is how I first saw you, and then we went out and went to happy hour or something. We just started hanging out. And I was like, all right, what are we doing together? We have to do something together.
Then I played one of your events.
Yeah, and then he came to a Peel event, and I mean, everybody there was like, holy hell, where'd you find this guy? So yeah. Yeah, I mean,
just
everybody
around the
falls in love with him.
No, that's fascinating. That's how the best friendships, relationships happen, just totally by accident.
Yeah.
You know, I don't believe in accident or coincidence, but I mean, that's when you don't expect it, put it that way.
I think part of it too is that I like choosing gigs that aren't like normal. You know, I just played a nursing home. I just played at a community center for some seniors.
That is cool. Wait a minute.
Well, you'd be surprised. And then I was at the gym,
really
and some
cool.
guy comes up and says, dude, you and your singer rocked it at that event last week. And I'm like, how would I know? You would never know the connection.
Yeah.
I'm not really super interested in just being in a bar band in the back room. I've already done that, and it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But I like playing like art events and like wine openings and breweries, and like opened up for the ballet a couple weeks ago.
Wow.
Nice.
And for me, that teaches me how to be versatile musically. You know, if you see like full band, we're rocking, I'm jumping around, we're losing our minds, and it's kind of like a big funk rock show. But then to be able to play for seniors and still play the same music, but change it to what makes sense for that setting, that makes me feel like I'm growing as a musician.
Oh, that's a skill set. That's talent.
And then you end up learning. Now I'm on like the nursing home circuit, apparently. Like there's like a buzz going on of like, hey, we heard you're really good. And I'm serious. I play all over the place. I've probably played 20 of them.
They probably appreciate that so much.
I think of it like this too. Like, one, music's a gift. And it keeps me grounded so that you never, I played this big stage and like, I don't want to do that thing, And then you get there, and I'm usually most super nervous at those because it's just a small group, and you don't get applause a lot of the times, which is great because I'm like, I'd never want to get to the point where I get so used to people applauding that like I lose sight of why I do it. And a lot of the times it's kind of quiet after the first song, a little bit more after. It just keeps growing, and by the end they're like super nice and like really engaged, and like, that one song about your sister really touched me. And then I think about if I were in a home and people can't visit me frequently because they have their lives, and then like once a week or once a month there's like the little music break time, what that would mean for like my mental health and my just physical health. And so that's sort of my way of giving back, and I get paid to do it too. But it's not about the money part because it's fine. But it's seeing like a little old lady light up after playing like a Bill Withers song, and like the same thing happened last week. I mean, these ladies sang from the first note till the last note. They danced. That some got up off their little walkers. Like, it was really wild. So I just think by being everywhere, you'd be surprised what it leads to.
That's awesome.
Music is healing.
It is.
It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, people are always talking about meditating. I try to meditate. It's I don't know. I can't. I have not been successful at that yet. But for me, my meditation is getting in my car and listening to music at very high volumes.
That's part of my meditation too.
So that is for me. That is what I do. I mean, that's, if I'm whatever kind of, healing that I need, it's in my car with my music.
I just like the idea of like having a range of who I'm playing in front of. We played Chalk Fest, and then because of that, like a big name promoter hit me up and said, hey, I saw you at Chalk Fest. I want to have you on an event next year. Never would have happened if I weren't there. So I kind of treat life that way. It's like, how many places can I be in? How many new experiences can I bring into my life? And then how can I enrich other people's lives? So instead of just being like, I'm going to play this gig and get this money, it's like, there's more to it. So.
Well, they say you go nowhere by accident.
It's true.
Exactly right.
So,
Plus, I'm hungry. I'm very hungry and motivated. So.
That's good. That's fascinating, and I love that. The whole visual of you playing a nursing home is just really, really cool.
It's like a delicate gig. I don't really talk that much. Like, I say hi and thanks for having me and stuff. And this next song is the song I wrote for my mom. And then I'm just kind of head down. And I'm super nervous though, like, cause it's so intimate. I think that's what it is.
Yeah,
I can play in front of 10,000 people and I'm like good to go. Big stage, big crowd. Not really that nervous, but that, it's like, whoa, because it's silent, it's quiet, it's, you could tell they're really listening. And it's usually, I play the music in a way that I practice by myself. So I'm sharing a side that like everyone's kind of used to me like rocking out and playing solos and all this stuff, but I'm playing like really delicate songs that I don't normally play out, and it's just a different side. So it feels a little more vulnerable.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That is cool. And we talked a little bit earlier before we went on air here about your musical influences. So tell us a little bit about that.
My mom had a massive record collection, and ever since I was super little, I was already obsessed. So I remember she would let me like play the records because I took care of them and I just was super precious with them. And so it's like P-Funk and Bootsy and Heatwave, all the old soul. And then, pop music, once like MTV came into the world, like whatever MTV gave me, I liked. And then what really got me into guitar was like hard rock and heavy metal. Yeah. I was a strange little black kid in the hood, listening to Motley Crue and like, Ozzy. Yeah. I was sort of like, what? I'm like, I don't know. I like this too. But it was everything. It was never one style of music. It still isn't. Yeah. My house looks like a music store. Part Guitar Center, part Jerry's. Yeah.
I get the impression that you've never fit a label.
No.
You've always been a little bit outside of just the,
Way outside, yeah. I paid the price for that, but I'm glad that I went against the grain of what it was hard in Black culture doing things that like, that's weird, or what's that, or especially with heavy metal in the '80s, there was the whole misunderstanding of the imagery and all that stuff.
Absolutely.
But I was a skater too. Like I didn't play football.
You were a skater?
Mm-hmm. I didn't play basketball.
So this is really cool because you're a big guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you scream linebacker, right?
Oh, I still people think I'm a Steeler. It's like kind of annoying.
Yeah, these type of
then they
things.
think I'm lying.
But again, it's stereotypes. I mean, I get it, but that to especially where we live. I mean, Southwestern Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh. Yeah. I mean, we're very stereotypical. We put people. We love to put labels on people.
Yeah.
Right. But it takes a lot of courage to do that. I mean,
looking back, I'm glad I was brave, but it kind of sucked. Like I knew that I was choosing. It was almost like everything that I got more interested in, I'm like, this is going to make it harder. Why can't I just like this one thing, But it didn't feel natural for me to play football. It didn't feel natural for me to do those other things. I tried. I was good at sports. I was athletic. I was good at that stuff. I just didn't like the format. Like I didn't like that, But skating was cool because it was a communal thing. But it still was like it had a solo element to it. So it's like, well, I have to really practice by myself to get good at jumping these stairs or whatever it is.
Absolutely.
And but then you had your friends who all had their skills, and then you support, and those were your people you skated with. And I loved that part. And I like how the music and the art component really went together well. Right. That's where I feel like I learned like how to be an entrepreneur with skateboarding, because in the 80s, it came out in the 70s, but then in the 80s when it really was hitting, the t-shirts, the magazines, the stickers, there were these little like cardboard paper skateboard things. We were thirsty for that. And you didn't have like the internet or anything. So you waited for Thrasher magazine to come out. Yeah. You waited for someone to tell you about it. We would also wait on these VHS. So it would be like a skate team and they'd be like, hey, Powell Peralta, can't wait for it. So it was like Tony Hawk and all those guys. Yeah. And then you would watch their tricks and then you go try it. So that culture of like, well, these are teenagers, but they have their own line of skateboards. They have their own wheels. Mm-hmm. And then I realized that it all kind of went together. And I think that's followed me my whole life. Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah, just the marketing and like the branding and the style. And like, I was like, oh, you can create your own style. And then, you tag your skateboard or you tag a pole or you have a sticker, and like what stickers are on your board really define who you were. Right. That's where I really learned that in the beginning. And I'm literally still the same person when it comes to that.
All right. So do you still have a skate?
I haven't been on a board in a while, but I have a feeling I could probably still do it because I can still like jump high because I do CrossFit and all that stuff. So I'm sure it would translate, but I don't really need to break a wrist with a bunch of shows lined up. So
that was my next question. How many bones have you broken?
None.
None?
No.
Wow. Well, you already know the answer to yours. We just have to ask other people.
No, this is true. I've never broken a bone either, except the fixed fingers.
That's what I was going to say.
Never really broke anything.
Huh.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah, lucky me. Lucky me there. So,
when I was a kid, my mother, we always had music around the house. My parents, there was about 7 or 8 years between them. So my dad was old school jazz and blues, right? Miles Davis, Coltrane, Brubeck, all those guys. That was always around the house, right? In his space. My mother, in the 60s and 70s when I was growing up, she was a hippie. She was a little hippie chick. Right?
That's a good mix, though.
It was a great mix. So my musical tastes are all over the place. I'm pretty much open to just about anything.
Yeah.
Bob Marley, right? My mother loved Bob Marley. It was always around the house. So, but she decided one year that I needed to learn how to play guitar. It was probably 1971 or 2. So she buys me an electric guitar for Christmas.
That's a great gift.
Now listen. And it was something that probably, my father was a school teacher.
Yeah.
Right. So we weren't wealthy. So it was probably something that was more than what she should have spent.
Right.
Okay. So, and she gives me lessons. So I go down, and little amp too. So we go down for the lesson. What they teach you back then, right? Deep Purple.
Yeah.
So I mean, and really anybody can play that.
Yeah.
That riff, right? So that's what they're teaching you. So I went a couple of lessons. Didn't like it. Hurt my finger.
Yeah.
Right? Well, no, this is true.
Yeah.
It hurt my finger.
Yeah, it hurts.
So I'm trying to figure out in my 12-year-old mind how can I get out of this, right? Because my mother's like really excited about this.
Yeah.
So I had a buddy, and he wanted to play in the worst way. So he said, "I'll buy it." I said, "Okay, shut up. $100. Done." So I sold it for $100. And it turns out my mother paid about $300 for it.
Oh.
And this was like a couple of months later.
Yeah.
So that was obviously about 50 years ago, and she still throws it up at me every time she gets.
I can see that.
but it's a whole thing. So I'm very oriented to music, and it's a big part of my life. But I have no musical ability whatsoever. I don't have that. I don't have that talent or the patience for that.
It's funny. I think about it even now. People are like, "Oh, you can really play guitar," and I'm like, I've been playing for a long time, but I wasn't good. For a long time, it sucked, But what I had that I felt like I had something, which was I had a really good ear, and I would just memorize stuff, and I didn't have to hear that much to memorize it. I couldn't play it, but I could memorize it, and that was as a kid. I would just remember all these songs, and then as I got into guitar, I couldn't play what. I'm listening to high-end metal and shredder stuff. I'm like, I want to do that. You kind of just want to go 0 to 60, and I couldn't do it. And it was just a very slow grind. And then skateboarding was kind of at the forefront. And then in my 20s, you know what? I'm going to just stick with this. Never had a band, never played out. And my goal was to just play guitar the rest of my life and just pursue it, no matter if anyone heard a note. So for the first few years, most people didn't even know I played. I wouldn't tell them that I played. And then I got my sort of big boy guitar where I saved up money, had it on layaway. And then I was practicing 3 hours a day. And I could hear the progress. And then that's when I was like, oh, all right, let's just keep going. Still didn't have a band or anything, but because I don't read music. So a lot of it was just relying on my ears. So I'd play along with the record, maybe learn a little bit of it, but it was always what can I create against it? So my whole thing is I can create pretty fast. Every solo I play is on the spot. And it's terrifying because you're like, this might suck. It might not work out, but I kind of like that artistic creativity, the living on the edge and not really knowing what's next. And I feel like I've been living my life kind of the way that I play music.
Now you have a band now.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us about your band.
Nashville. We've only been together for a short amount of time, and it was me branching out on my own. I never really pushed myself solo. I played some solo gigs, but I was never comfortable being I'm Byron Nash, the musician. It was always what band am I in? And then I'll push that. I really like the collaborative energy and being in a band. And then my band at the time kind of fizzled. And I was just I don't know if I want to start another one. You know what? Just start playing gigs. And I remember I hired a business coach, and she's like, you're not really out there. You're out there, but you're not really out there as you. You need to work on that. And it was really humbling and kind of sucky to hear, but I needed to hear it. So I started working on kind of developing who I was without relying on anyone. And she asked me a really hard question. She was like, why do you think you need these people to do music? I was like, well, I just, I like to share. It's a good team. Mm-hmm. She's like, yeah, you don't need that. You can do that, but focus on yourself, and that kind of changed how I thought about things. And I just started leaning into it, starting playing the, nursing homes and any type of gig, art openings, things like that. And then I ended up meeting, was it 2021? Yeah, my drummer, I reached out to him, someone booked me, and I said, hey, will you sit in on this gig? Didn't know him. He was my favorite drummer in town, but I didn't know him. And we played the gig, and then I put a picture up online with my drummer and his brother, and people were like, you guys are together? And all of a sudden, it's arts festival. It was yeah. And I played 100 gigs that year. And I had never done that before. And I didn't start playing until May.
Wow.
Yeah. And the last gig was, we ended up, I just called it the Byron Nash Trio because I didn't have a band name. Even the guys were like, we should start a band. I was like, yeah, cool. It sounds like me doing a lot of band work. It sounds like me being the band manager, But it just kept going and going. We were getting better and better. We ended up headlining first night, and we were like the first local group to ever do that. And then it was like 100 gigs that year. Then the next year, 150. Brought the singer on and said, why don't you just be the lead singer of the band? Because she has a big church gospel voice and a big presence, And then we've just been running with it. So much that I'm like, oh, shoot, we got to record some music, guys. Like, all the gigs came, but now we have to catch up to how popular it got so quickly.
Sure. So some of the music, sorry, but I sent her a note the other day, Tug of War. Mm-hmm. Is that a new tune?
No, that was actually me breaking out of my shell. That song was sort of like, it's going through some funkiness and feeling weird. And I hooked up with this producer guy and I made that song at home. And then I'm like, I really want to just put this song out. I've never even played it live. It was just sort of like branching out to push myself to kind of create that momentum to even believe in the music that I was making solo. It was almost like I didn't have the same confidence by myself that I did with a project. And so that was the beginning of this whole train. Mm-hmm.
I went on a website just to get some background, and they had a preview on there. Mm-hmm. So I clicked on it, and that's when I sent her a text. I said, "This is us. This tune. Listen to this. This is our song for the podcast." I said, "This is it. It's the one we've been looking for because we had talked about doing something, know." And I was going and I'm thinking of different different music that I like, different songs. Yeah. And I said, this is the one. This is the one.
I didn't tell you that. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's so wild. That's great. I mean,
surprise.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting too because there was a string of songs that I recorded around that time, and it's like they just didn't come out. Like things happened with the producer guy, and I'm like, well, all right, fine. I'm just gonna upgrade my studio, and it was almost like that you can do something, but you're kind of afraid that you're not doing it as good as what you would kind of critique it. And then I was holding myself back, and it seems weird because people are like, you don't hold yourself back, but I was. And then I upgraded my studio. I started like recording every day and just like studying and just threw myself deeper into it. And now I'm like, oh, it sounds pretty good. It's not too bad. And if you can like something that you made, because sometimes you know how we are. Yeah, it's
critical.
Yeah, it's super critical. And then being able to step outside of it. And then earlier this year, someone asked me to score a play, and that forced me to I said yes. Then I was like, shucks. Oh no, and I have to really be good. But I needed that pressure. And I think I always needed that little extra electricity behind it, not just going off my own motivation, because I'm pretty motivated, but I needed something to take it, a notch higher. Kind of like that post you said, this is here. Why am I not pushing for here? Maybe it was the environment, maybe it was the people I was around, maybe it was on my own self-doubt in that area because it was new. And that play forced me to have to really get good at producing and just recording and creating quickly because they were like, well, we need it to kind of sound like this because this is happening in the scene. And I'm like, I've never done this before. Okay, cool. So every day I was like, I have to write 2 pieces of music a day, no matter how much, even if it's just the first idea. And then I just kept sending them music. And then all of a sudden we had this big folder, and it was every song in there was original.
I mean, when you told me that you were doing that,
it was great.
That's amazing. I think that's amazing that you can do that. And
for you, I don't even know
that first time out of the gate doing that, and being so successful doing it, but I guess putting so much of your heart into it as well. So many people do things I just got to bare minimum, just got to get it in there, just got to do it. But you really,
I felt like once I committed, I had no choice. And so it was one of those things where, I don't know if you guys feel like this, where say you didn't go to college, but you're really smart, and then you're around a bunch of people who went to college. And so there's that weird imposter syndrome. Mm-hmm. It's kind of the same thing with not being able to read music. And then I'm around a bunch of jazz musicians. I'm like, I don't even want to talk music with you guys. But I had to realize that my superpower is that I hear and I can feel, and I can just understand quickly what the music needs to feel like. And then I know people who can read me under a table and maybe even play me under a table, but they can't make something that people feel. And I'm like, I won't trade that. And that was sort of what it was. It was, I went to the play, I read the script and I'm like, I've never even read a script before. So I went to the rehearsals and I'm like, oh, okay. And they're like, so the dad's going to come in and it's got to be a dark moment. And I'm like, okay. And then I just would marinate on like, what did that feel like? And then I would watch like little commercials or like watch little clips of different movies and things. I'm like, why does Tarantino soundtracks, why is the most violent scene the like most peaceful music? How does it make it more intense? Things like that. And so I was just studying how music is being used in film to convey a feeling. And then I just leaned into it.
Do you have to realize too that you're so talented?
Thanks.
Honestly, I mean, talent and creativity, I mean, you can't learn that.
No.
You can't go to school for that.
No, and now I understand it, but I think I was, I don't know, just putting that weird societal pressure on myself, like,
Sure.
You're done with that, right?
We all do it.
Yeah. I'm like, we're breaking out of that now. No more holding back.
Seriously, I mean, sky's the limit for you.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to understand that now.
I think I'm coming to terms with it, and it's weird because I always felt like I was a go-getter and an achiever and stuff, but then you look back and you're like, I still was playing small, because you start realizing there are bigger things. And the same thing happened even with the Pop District. When they came to me about it, I was like, I just said, yeah, like whatever it's going to be. I knew it was going to get me from bartending and it's going to be different. And it's just, any type of affiliation with the Warhol was exciting to me. But I also remember like our first like in-person meeting last year and kind of sitting around and I'm like looking around the room and everyone's just like kind of high end. And I'm like, how did I get here? Like, how did I get in the seat? Until I realized it's the same thing. I have something to offer that's different, that it's part of the team. And that's what I think everybody should learn. It's like, what are your skills and what are your superpowers? Because, someone might have that college degree and that's awesome, but they don't know how to talk to people.
Yeah,
or
soft
they don't
skills.
Like there's a power into
right.
that. So I'm just leaning into that more and trying to get out of my own way. But I think for every stage, I always tend to do that. Like CrossFit coaching, I was just a class member, you know what I mean? And my coach came to me one day because they normally do trainings and they shut the gym down. So I was like, hey, are we open on the weekend? She was like, no, we have the training. Why, do you want to be a coach? I was like, no way. Like, She's like, oh my God, why didn't I think of that? You'd be a great coach. I was like, please, I do not. And she's like texting her husband while I'm saying no. And she's like, yeah. And they like signed me up for it. And then I became a level 1 coach. And then I went for my level 2 last year. And here I am. But I never thought, I didn't see myself in that light. And then I was like, oh, I'm actually a pretty good coach.
So do you see the common thread that everything you do, someone's like, oh my gosh, you're amazing. We want you to like take
I don't know what my thing is, gotta peel some layers off, But I think that happens. I think it's part of being an artist too, where you know something's good, but you don't want to be like, and then I saw a thing about like being humble and how that's sort of like a bad thing. Because you can kind of be humble in the sense where you'll sit in the background so much that you'll play yourself out of an opportunity because you weren't, not necessarily boasting and being, I don't mean that, but just where you're confident in what you do and like believe in it enough to be noticed for what it is so that those new opportunities are there instead of sitting in the back like, I play guitar. That's how I got into the music business because I was like a graphic designer at I was like a intern and, I just didn't have the computer skills yet because it wasn't taught before I graduated. So I had all the creativity. I was great at 2D. I was good at 3D. I was good at painting. I was throwing pottery. I was doing all the things. But then I got a job at the magazine that I used to read all the time to do graphic design. And it was all computers. And I only had like 1 semester of computers. So I'm like kind of struggling through it. Like it's just not translating for me because I was so tactile and super shy, super quiet. And my boss came in and he was like, hey, does anyone know anything about the hair metal band Rat? And I'm like, I got my little Rasta hat on, and I was like, I do. And I'm like the only black kid there, so, and everyone kind of paused and just busted out laughing. They're like, oh yeah, right, whatever. And they went back. And I was like, no, I do. And he was like, you know about Rat? And he pulls me in his office and he was like, what do you, feet up on the desk, what do you know about Rat? And I was just like, blah, 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 blah. Like, you couldn't shut me up. And he was like, whoa, hold on. What else do you know about? He's like, you know about hair metal? And I was like, oh yeah. And then he was in this band first. And that's how I became a writer. So they were like, oh my God, what else do you listen to? And I was telling them all this different stuff. They were like, have you ever written a CD review? And I was like, for fun? And, and he's like, bring it in. They reviewed it. They're like, oh, we got to work some things out. And I ended up becoming a writer. My first interview was with Rat in person.
That's a good story.
That's a great story.
The same group that I was recording off of MTV with a cassette player because we couldn't afford the music, just so I would have it. And then I was in a hotel downtown with Rat, with the album that I had from when I was 15, partying with Rat, asking them questions. I'm like, how did I get here?
Yeah, that's amazing.
But again, I was like, you know, and so I think every stage is just like, what is your next stage of like bravery, and what's your next level of belief in yourself? Because you might not see it. You're kind of like this. And then all of a sudden, I became local music editor. So then I knew all the local bands in the scene and had to write about them. And then I became managing editor. And then I started taking photos, and I was interviewing rock stars and sitting on tour buses. Crazy. And that's how I got into the music business, not from playing as a writer. That's why I understand like media and press.
So what's one of your favorite things that you've done in your life so far?
Well, that definitely was one. I mean, it was just such a cool job, you know, and I was in my 20s, you know. That would definitely be up there just because it wasn't just like, oh, rock stars and, you know, bands that I like. I was helping like cultivate the scene in a very small way where it's like, hey, I really love this band. And I go to my boss and say, we should write about them. No one else knows about them yet. And then bringing that to fruition. And then also I was doing flyers for bands that I liked that came through. And I would hand draw flyers, and then I didn't have to pay to get into the show. So I kind of learned networking and how to be backstage and how to be around promoters and how to be in a room and be like, I know it seems like that's the guy that has all the power, but it's actually that guy over there who's the most low key and laid back. And I had to learn that by being in those spaces. So that was it was like rock and roll college. It was great.
So you were helping to elevate all these emerging bands and
and those were national bands too, you know, but then also local bands because, you know, I was talking about press kits and photos. I was like, I started writing press kits for people because they didn't know they didn't know that part of the game, you know, but that's again, kind of the skateboarding entrepreneur side is like, well, I do understand this part. I can take your band photos too, you know, so that was part of it.
You were expanding. At the same time,
and that
growing
just led
forward and growing into it.
Yeah, and it led to other things. So I think that experience was the biggest life lesson. And also just, you know, being a single parent at 18, that's life college for sure. Well, yeah, that did it. That did it for sure. But that was all in conjunction. So I think that was part of it. Like being a young parent, being a young black male with like a mixed kid in Pittsburgh, of all places, right? Opportunities weren't really there. And then a lot of the times I had to like fight harder in the sense because people were like, is this your little brother? I'm like, no, it's my son. And then I have to like prove it. And then they don't believe me. And they're like, well, how do you have, you know, like all these kind of social things that I'm trying to overcome. And that's what made me want to like lean into being an artist because at the time, a lot of the programs that were coming out were like nursing programs. It was only for single moms because single dads really weren't that much of a thing. So I would have to go through all these extra hoops to prove, okay, well, art's not a thing. You can't make money doing art. Well, yeah, you can. Now everything's like art, right? But back then, it wasn't viewed that way. They thought you were going to be like painting somewhere.
Yeah.
So what's your son think of everything that you're doing now?
He thinks it's great. Yeah. He thinks, because he was there the whole way.
Is he artistic? Is he
what
does he
creative? He actually works for Amazon. He's an Amazon driver, but he makes beats. He's a producer. He's a shoe collector. So all of my like really nice sneakers, he's my hookup. That's the plug.
There you go.
And you know, he's just a really creative kid because I was really determined to make sure that we didn't watch a lot of television. I didn't have a television until he was like 4. Yeah, maybe 3 or 4. But then we didn't have cable till he was like 14. So it was just music, art, experience. I would take him to shows with me. I'd take him to festivals. You know, I just wanted him to grow up not relying on all of those other things. You know, and there's a weird thing that comes along with that because then it kind of makes your kid a little weird against the other kids who are watching TV all the time. And they're kind of like creative. But now he's like, I'm so glad that we were on that other path, you know. So that was probably
That's very cool.
That's my biggest accomplishment, him.
That's amazing.
That's very amazing because, I have kids and I was, I was 20. I get that part of it, but I was married, so I had that piece of it. I can't imagine doing that as a single dad back then.
It's crazy.
That's insane.
I mean, I went, when people say I wouldn't change it, I would change like how hard stuff was. Like, I'd be a liar, but like, no, keep it all the same. No, but I also think like being that broke and then figuring out how to survive, that's a great skill because I'm like, every time my goal was, we're not going to go sideways and we're not going to go backwards. So even if it's only a small notch up, that was really important to show him through how I worked. And then I just became like a workhorse. And, some of it was like, well, I don't have the same education everybody does. Like I graduated, I went CCAC, graphic design, came right out, was teaching at Manchester Craftsman's Guild. I was teaching pottery. I was teaching over at Westinghouse. I was working at the magazine the same time, got laid off from the teaching, leaned hardcore into the magazine, but I knew work ethic was going to be at the foundation of all of it. I can learn things, but like, it's kind of hard to learn like work ethic.
Work ethic's tough.
I don't know how you teach that one. Like you kind of either have it and develop it, or you kind of don't.
I think those who struggle often, I mean, when you first start off with anything, you appreciate everything so much more. Yeah. There's so many people that get everything handed to them. Right.
Yeah, and I definitely didn't have that. I mean, the things that I feel like really grateful for was like that my mom didn't like really censor a lot of things. So there wasn't that need to go out and do the thing because I was like, well, I watched that movie with my mom, so I don't know, But, we used to live in Coriopolis when I lived in Baltimore for a while and came back here to kind of get my life together with my kid. And about a month ago, I played in Coriopolis. They have a thing called Coriopolis Days. And it was like right around the corner from where I like raised him in the early days. So when the show was over, I drove through this kind of like small kind of project, like complex, wasn't like super projecty, but enough. And, just to remind myself, like, holy crap, didn't have a car, used to wrap a towel around the bar and put my kid on the middle and have the groceries dangling off of the bike. And that's what it was. And I would like ride from Coriopolis to the north side to school. Like whatever it took, and then you look back on that, you're like, I'm glad I did that because it's like the thread of my character. Right. Not that I would want to do that again, but it's like, I know that it's in me that if I had to do something, I can do it.
That's the blessing, right? That's the blessing.
You did it. You got through it. Yeah.
Right.
So.
Wow. All right. So, last thing we want to talk about. Yeah. He loves beer.
Me too.
Beer. I've been waiting for the beer. Thank you. Thank you, because I've been waiting for that. Tell us about this event. This is really cool, and this is an annual thing that's going on.
So Barrel and Flow, it is I think it's the first African American craft beer festival. Started about 5 years ago, under a different name. Each year gets bigger and bigger, and what they do is they partner people up with breweries, whether it be an artist and a brewery or a restaurant and a brewery or whatever it is. And they throw in a big festival. I mean, people come from like LA for this thing. It's big. And
so a podcast in a brewery, right? I mean, that's what.
Well, it started as I know that the guys had like a podcast and then it kind of branched out from that. So, but yeah, I guess you could do that, right? Like, I see what you're doing there. You almost got me too. I almost missed it. I was just like, yeah, like they do have a podcast. Well, they do. It's called Drinking Partners. So. What I like about it, one, I think some people get confused when they're like, African American, is it all black people drinking beer? It's like, no. But in the community, in the brewing community, we're only like represented this much from a brewing perspective. Meanwhile, industry-wise, it's like this huge industry, but there's brewers all over the country and all over the world. So this is shedding light on that, and that's why they built these partnerships so that we can all elevate, right? So like from the artists to the musicians, the brewers, and just kind of like keeping it equal across the board for everybody, making sure everyone's represented. That's what I really like about it. But that's how I ended up with my own beer for 5 years, called Black Metal.
Black. Okay. What is that beer? What can I look forward to? What am I getting if I go and order Black Metal? What am I getting?
Well, we only did it, so it's done. Like the run is over, right?
The run is over.
Yeah. I mean, it was 5 years long, and It wasn't. It was only supposed to be one. So part of it was me just seeing an opportunity there and leaning into the marketing component through that, making the beer popular. And then I kept getting asked to do the beer again. So now, I have a beer coming out for my band with Fermata Brewing called So the band's Nashville, but the beer's called On the One, which is like a throwback to James Brown and P-Funk. And just like nothing's more important than the first one in the beat, in the groove. And we're like kind of this funky, swaggy group, and we all, that's the basis of our music. So Fermata is a music brewery too, as well. And it just seemed like the perfect marriage. So,
right.
Yeah.
All right. So what's this beer taste like?
I don't know, because we just started brewing it. It takes like 2 months,
Okay.
Yeah. So, but it's going to be Imperial Pale Lager.
Okay,
made
cool.
with African hops.
Cool.
So it comes out for Barrel and Flow.
That
It'll
sounds
be at the
interesting because that's
festival.
right up my alley. I like it.
When is this now? Do the date?
Saturday, August 12th.
All right. So mark your calendar. I guess
Absolutely.
We're not doing anything probably then and the day
And
after.
it's here, right?
Yeah, it's in it's like 3 crossings, the stacks of 3 crossings. Like it's a big outdoor thing. It's massive. It's great.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
All right. So what is your role that day? What are you doing that day?
I get to stand at the freaking tent and drink beer with the brewery and just say hi to everybody and hang out. I don't have to play any music. I can just socialize and not have any pressure and just walk around. And I'll know so many people there. So it's so community based that it's just a great day of socializing and hanging out. Yeah. I'll see a lot of customers I haven't seen from bartending. Like it's like a reunion almost. It's great.
So you need to bring a chair. You can just sit down next to
Oh yeah.
Oh, guaranteed.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just gonna. I'll be there. You'll be tripping over me because I'm definitely
That'll
going to
be
be
an Uber
there.
day for you.
If they bring a generator to the tent, maybe I'll plug a guitar in or something. But I don't want to disrupt
We'll
anything.
definitely be there.
Absolutely. No, that's fantastic. And I love that it's here because the Pittsburgh is really emerging and come a long way. Not only, in brewing and, when you look at down at Washington County, Liberty Pole Spirits, they're doing all these different things. I love seeing all this stuff because Pittsburgh is such a cool, dynamic, and vibrant city now.
And I think that's why I'm excited. This isn't even a plug. I'm really excited to be a part of the pop district because I can feel that we're like right on the cusp of this next change. And being a part of like a team that's like brave and like, no, well, they tell us we can't do it. That means we're going to do it.
There's a vibration.
Yeah. It's exciting to me because, by myself, I feel that, but like there's strength in numbers. So when you have a team who's capable and talented and they're like, no, this is how we're going to do it. Let's make it happen.
Sure.
And if people don't believe, we'll just show them and then they can come back later and say, oh, we knew you would do it. Yeah.
That is very cool.
Yeah, I like it here. It's very cool. It's like I said, there's
It's a great
vibration
space.
here, but everybody here is so friendly too.
Yeah, the culture is really healthy. That's the other thing. Sometimes every time I get on the elevator, this is not like fake. I had hit the button and then the doors closed and then I have a moment of gratitude that this is my job. Because like there's job and then there's work. I'm always going to work, but I want my job to feel like I'm like living my life, not like I'm going to work. Yeah, and I don't feel like that. Even on the days where there's like challenges and stuff like that, I don't feel that. And I don't know if I've ever felt that before.
That's a blessing.
Yeah. Look at this.
Yeah.
This is amazing.
Yeah, how can I not be inspired?
It's amazing. That's wow, very cool. Listen, this has been great. What a great story.
Thank you.
And just as you've been sitting here talking, I can see your journey and how you've progressed and how you've transitioned your just in life, through your music and everything that you've done. You can see the stops along the way. It's a great story.
I feel fortunate because they usually say a lot of the stuff happens after 40 and 50. Quincy Jones was in his 40s when he did Thriller. So I'm like, oh, I got time to do some great things. So now I feel like I got a lot of that other stuff out of the way, the fear, the doubt, the mistakes. And now I feel like I still have my physical functions about me and I have energy. Let's go. I'm really excited.
And musically, artistically, you're really courageous. when you're
I'm
talking,
super brave in that space. I'm not afraid on stage or anything. It's like, it was more coming out as myself. But now I feel good about it. I'm recording a record now. So it's great.
Well, we're excited for you for everything
Thank
that's
you.
coming down the pike and we
Thank
love
you.
watching what you're doing too.
So when we have the beer come out, I can do a special guest appearance, and
Absolutely.
we have the beer on. I know you're not a big beer drinker, but
We will do an entire show around that.
The heavy beer is what I have a struggle with.
Oh no, this one's going to be lighter.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
I'm all in.
that won't
Okay.
Yeah, I'm in.
Awesome.
Well, listen, brother, thank you so much.
you, guys.
It's been
Thank you for
amazing.
coming.
Appreciate you, and thanks for your hospitality here in this amazing place at the Pop
Welcome.
District.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's great.